Buying a home or thinking about refinancing? Work with someone local who understands the central Indiana market. Gary Tedrow with Verity Mortgage helps homebuyers and homeowners explore options for purchasing, refinancing, or even consolidating higher interest debt through their mortgage. Gary's approach is simple, clear advice, and personalized guidance, so you can make confident decisions. Visit loansbygary.homes to learn more or get started today. You've got nothing to lose but dollars on your mortgage payment. So call for a free, no-obligation quote, 317-695-5179. Gary Tedrow, NMLS number 179207 with Verity Mortgage, NMLS number 70345, an equal housing opportunity lender.
Bramwell Mackay assists managers of multifamily and commercial real estate properties with exterior and structural condition assessment and end-to-end building wellness. Your consulting partners for water intrusion inspection and remediation, Bramwell Mackay handles historic restoration and repair, as well as modern repair needs. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. That's 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Hey guys, welcome back. Rob Kendall Show. Follow along, robkendallshow.com. Our next guest has spent the past 15 years searching for the middle of America, the middle in America, politically speaking. Will he ever find it? Does it even exist? Let's find out. Chris Spangle from the We Are Libertarians radio network, podcasting network, and our landlord here at this palatial studios.
You're in my chair.
He joins us now. How are you?
I'm good. I've never sat over here. This is a very awkward. I'm always in that chair.
It's weird, right?
The power chair, yeah.
So I think you're an interesting guy to have this conversation with. And I saw you post, by the way, what is this? It's like the 14th anniversary of starting We Are Libertarians.
Yeah, March 8th, 2012. Started We Are Libertarians with a couple of guys as a college outreach, almost said ministry, college outreach podcast to like Ron Paul Libertarians at college campuses, and then turned into, you were actually one of the first podcasts on the We Are Libertarians podcast network back in 2013.
Rob Kendall Show.
We had
that was the first incarnation.
Yeah, we had like 25, 30 different shows, 100 different co-hosts. Like My Marriage came out of it. Sarah and Jer from Boss Hog of Liberty, they got married. Their first date was at a We Are Libertarians thing. It's just beautiful experience. 6 million downloads.
Well, that was my point. Is that people hear We Are Libertarians and they laugh, but it's not about like big L libertarians. And a lot, millions of people, literally millions of people over the years have found the products, the people that you have put on that network, and a lot of people have thought about government in a different way because of you guys.
Well, thank you. Yeah, 6 million downloads is a big accomplishment. Especially as infrequently as we do the show. But yeah, I started getting into the Libertarian Party kind of after Ron Paul in 2008, but I worked for Abdul. I was Abdul's producer.
On WXNT.
Yeah, I was there from 04 to 08, and there for all the Ballard Tea Party era stuff, like ground zero really for a lot of it. But the beauty of that job is that I got to go to, I was already a Republican. I worked on Todd Rakita's like first campaign in 02.
So wild to think of you as a Republican.
I was Rob Green, who's the state chair now. He was the College Republicans president before me, and then I took over for him in 04.
Well, look where he went. Look at where your life went.
Oh, I know. Well, that's because I volunteered for Andy Horning, and he volunteered for Mitch Daniels in 2000. And I'm much love to Andy, dear friend. But yeah, I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, watching Democrats and Republicans as a reporter, I realized this is all rigged. This is all crazy. I think you've ended up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let's give a third party a shot, and got involved in the Libertarian Party, which, being the executive director of the state Libertarian Party from 8 to 12 was one of the greatest jobs I've ever had.
That was sort of pre-Rainwater.
Very much, yeah.
Rainwater sort of lucked in, and I like Don, but he really lucked into everyone hating Holcomb.
Right.
That was the pinnacle. 2012, you had the aforementioned Andy Horning running for U.S. Senate,
right,
doing very well because of Murdoch, and then Rupert, and so. But my question to you is, because you have sort of, you're always an interesting guy to me, because I find you somewhat socially liberal but fiscally conservative. I sort of feel like you are the country, like the middle, like you don't get too fired up about anything. I'll call you screaming and you'll be like, shut up. Is there really a middle in the country in terms of politics? Like, does this actual middle supposedly exist?
Yeah, I think they're not politically engaged, but I think that middle definitely exists. I think we take for granted how catechized we are by our own social media feeds. And so we tend to think that what we see on our social media feeds, on our phones, is how everybody else thinks. But one of the beauties of my career, because of podcasting, I've been exposed to a lot of big audiences. From We Are Libertarians to the Pat Down, which is a largely progressive audience, largely female, black audience, to the Bob and Tom audience, which is very conservative, like think Duck Dynasty, Trump voter, right? I've been privileged in media to interact with thousands of people a month, a week sometimes, and see what they post, how they think, how they talk. And it's really shaped my views into something that is just very weird. Like, I'm a Christian, I'm conservative, we live a very Christian conservative lifestyle. I just don't want to point the gun of government at your head and say you need to live that way.
Because you and I had a conversation about abortion years ago. I don't remember this on air, and I asked you I think it was when the whole abortion debate was going on in 2022, and I asked you about it. You said, I really struggle with this because I am personally 100% pro-life.
Yeah.
But how does that view square with what I think other people should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, when Dobbs happened, my wife actually started a ministry to help women who are considering abortion, because we really felt like this is, on the whole, a good thing, but there's all of these women now that are going to have babies who are not in a position to care for them well. They need support, they need help, right? And I think the church sometimes looks at it, I think most people look at it and go, the shortcut is using government to force you to do something, live a certain way, and then my work is done here.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not how I think Christians ought to view it. I think they ought to be engaged in their community. If it's one thing to say there should be a law against abortion, it's another to say I'm going to get in the middle of their life, help them find housing, transportation, clothing, diapers. And a lot of times people don't want to do that work.
Right.
It's not a Christian thing. It's like people in general have their own stuff that they're dealing with.
Chris Spangle is our guest. We Are Libertarians Radio Network, our landlord here at this beautiful facility. We would not be off the ground right now without him. Thank you for causing all this chaos.
I want to see you succeed. I want to see Jason succeed. You, not as much, but
if this American middle does exist and it is so prevalent as you say, why has it not culminated in more independent or third party or at least from the other two parties, more moderate type candidates succeeding?
Cheating. The answer is very simple. It's cheating. Just to kind of go through some numbers, because I'm a data guy,
yes.
Right?
That's why I fear ever ask you to be on the show, because
you're going to get numbers, right? So 45% of people identify themselves as independent according to Gallup,
and that really mirrored that independent Indiana poll from our state that they put out before Ballard declared he was running for Secretary of State.
Yeah, but listen to this: major party candidates are automatically listed on the ballot in 50 states. So Republicans and Democrats in every state are automatically on the ballot. Independents, Libertarians, Green Party, they have to meet this patchwork across the country of a ton of different ballot access rules. And so in California, if you wanted to run for office, you have to come up with 219,000 signatures, which is a tremendous amount of money because you have to hire people to get signatures. And you really have to get 500,000 because your law firms are going to come in from either party and start knocking those things out. And so,
unless you're Todd Young, then you can do whatever you want.
Well, then, yeah, I mean, but if you're Jim Wallace in 2016, then you're out of luck, right? So people, you have
Let me. You said something real quick, and I want to touch on this because tell people how this works. So I think you meant 2012.
Yeah.
Jim Wallace tried to run against Mike Pence for governor in 2012. The Pence campaign challenged his signatures in Marion County.
Correct.
I think that was the county. I was totally naive to all of this. I had just been elected. Like, I thought Mike Pence was the greatest thing in the world, and I didn't understand any of it.
Yeah.
But I remember being on a campaign-wide conference call where they were giddy about finding a way to get this guy, or maybe they had just gotten him kicked off. I can't remember. But they were like almost braggadocious about getting this guy kicked off the ballot. And I remember thinking to myself, like, again, I'm totally naive to how all of this works. And I'm like, thinking to myself as I'm listening to this, why are we excited about making it harder for people to run? Why are we excited that people aren't being allowed to compete? Shouldn't that be sort of the cornerstone of our government? And obviously now, years later, I totally understand.
Yeah, when I broke with the Republican Party, it was the 2008 convention. And I remember this woman who I think was named Melissa, who became a Tea Party leader, came up to the table crying. I'm in the reporter pit. And she's just like, you have to talk about what they did to us. You have to talk about this. I'm like, what is this lady talking about? And what ended up happening is that Ron Paul delegates showed up in force across the country to a bunch of different conventions, including Indiana. And the top-down instructions in the Republican Party were disenfranchise these voters. Do not let them get to the convention because they're going to cause havoc. Because they were motivated to save the country from people who get us involved in wars just superfluously, without any kind of plan. And we found out later it was about over 300 Ron Paul delegates. They violated the election laws. They violated the party bylaws. And they kicked these people out. And I thought, okay, I'm a Ron Paul guy. There's no changing this party. They will continually change the rules to make sure that a libertarian can't work within the party. And that's always the perennial debate. But, like, look at the facts. Like, look at what's happening to Thomas Massie. Here's a guy who's anti-war, who is anti-pedophile, and is pro-transparency. He represents three very prevalent views in middle America, and the Republican Party is, Trump is holding a rally there with Jake Paul like last night to try and kick him out. So when you look at Indiana's ballot access laws, okay, and that's why I think Ballard is so interesting. You have automatic ballot access for Republicans and Democrats. The standard to get on the ballot is 2% in the Secretary of State's race. It was 0.5% for many, many years. Right. And then there was a contested sheriff's race, I think in Lake or LaPorte County in the late 80s, early 90s. And the Libertarian candidate, quote unquote, cost the Republican that race. And so he went to his legislator and they raised that to 2%. The Libertarians lost ballot access. And then in 1994, they got 2%. So every Libertarian candidate, they get on the ballot, right? As long as they go through conventions and they go through that process. If the Libertarian Party or the Lincoln Party hits 10%, they achieve major party status, which means...
But it has to be done in the Secretary of State's race.
Just the Secretary of State's race here in Indiana.
Right.
Okay? Major party status is... It means you have to hold a primary.
Right.
The primaries are not elections. They are closed party business that the taxpayers carry the bill.
You're right. For
Republican and Democrat primaries.
It seems to be happening more and more often here, using public money to campaign.
It's a Class C misdemeanor for me to go in and vote in a Republican or Democratic primary. I do. Come at me. But you when you go in and you pull that R or D ballot, then they register that you are now I'm what's considered a soft Republican,
right? Because
over the course of my voting history, I've probably voted in 3 Republican primaries and 1 Democratic primary.
Yeah.
So they look at me in the data as a swing voter.
They know who you are,
but they have my data.
Yeah.
Because I've pulled a ballot. They know that Chris Spangle has participated in a primary. People who are libertarians that have never gone and voted in a primary, they don't have that data. There's 130,000 people that click the straight ticket voting button in elections, and the Libertarian Party has no idea who those people are. So if they hit 10%, they would get that. But what happened when Mark Rutherford and Mike Weary and some other folks who have repeatedly run well as Secretary of State candidates, and they get close to that 2% line, you've got representatives from the northern part of the state. This kid, I don't know what, he's like 25 and he's a legislator or something. You know, he's like, we've got to make this 5%. We've got to rig this so they can't get it.
Well,
ahead.
remember they tried to make the change after rainwater to force them to go through the same signature process that the Republicans and so a couple minutes left here. Chris Spangle is our guest from We Are Libertarians, also the landlord of the Rob Kendall Show. Ballard, this is what I say to people, because people, well, Ballard was a liberal as the mayor of Indy to blah, blah, blah. Okay, that may be true. I say he's very important, though, because he has the ability, unlike any person ever, to change politics. And this is not an endorsement of Greg Ballard. I'm not telling people to vote for Greg Ballard. I'm just saying, if you're a person who hates the system, you should be very invested in him at least being on the ballot, because if he gets that 10%, now you've got a third party that's already there. You're talking about run 100%. For governor, Senate, all of these things, they're there.
You go back to progressive era politics in Indiana, and third parties did really well in that era. And third parties have always done well in Indiana because it's a very independent-minded, stubborn state. That's why redistricting was never going to work. You cannot have Washington come in and tell us how to live. I love Greg Ballard. I think the world of Greg Ballard. I think it's concerning for the Libertarian Party that he's running. I think that
because they may not get the 2%.
That 2% could be, but I think Greg Ballard is the type of person that a lot of Middle America wants. He's an honorable man who tells the truth, even if you don't agree with him. He's a veteran, Marine Corps vet, who has fairly moderate politics. And when you break down the 2024 vote, right, 4.9 Hoosiers were eligible to vote.
4.9 million.
4.9 million.
Yeah.
Okay, 35% voted Republican, 1.7 million voted for Republicans, 24% voted Democrat in the presidential race, 2% voted for others, and 39% did not vote. They chose not to vote. And so when you look at redistricting...
total voters, right. Okay,
of total eligible voters, 39% did not participate.
That's a huge customer base.
35% were Republicans, 24 and 2.
Okay.
And Trump won 58%, Harris won. So it's 60-40. Representation in Congress is 60-40, right? So you have an enormous amount of Hoosiers who are looking for a different alternative. Redistricting being defeated, I think, was very important because what we have repeatedly seen in the Libertarian Party in my time there was in exit polling. Go to CNN's exit polling and look at the Libertarian candidates. Lucy Brenton, for instance. This idea that Libertarians pull from Republicans is BS.
Right.
It's not true. It's never been held up by Rebecca St. Burris or Lucy Brenton's exit polling, Andy Horning's exit polling. Never seen any data to prove that ever.
Right.
What happens is a Libertarian candidate polls equally from the two parties, usually between 5 and 10%. So 5% here, 5% there. And then what it does is activates 90% new voters who now see their ideology on the ballot and they want a different choice. And so what you'll see is like with these voter drives, they get shut down by the Indiana Republican Party and the Democratic parties because we don't want a lot of new voters. We know where our voters are. We want a district to only have 3 or 4 competitive races to conserve cash. Greg Ballard coming in represents an enormous threat to a huge industry of campaign flax, of candidate spending, of advertising on local TV stations and radio stations. Because he could completely disrupt Indiana politics. Because think about it this way, okay? When Mitch Daniels was governor, he approached the Libertarians. I sat down with Eric Holcomb, who was chief of staff at the time, with the state chair, Sam Goldstein, and they said, give us a list of people. Because we've discovered that state boards and commissions need to be made up of 2 parties.
Yeah.
It says 2 parties. It doesn't say the 2 major parties.
Yeah.
So Mitch realized I could start appointing Republicans and Libertarians to these boards. Mark Rutherford, to this day, is still head of the Public Defenders Commission. Klopp was appointed, Brad Klopfenstein.
I used to do this all the time as an elected official for the planning commissions, and they'd get so mad at me, and I'd say, no, the Libertarians qualify. We got a couple on there.
And if you look at the vote total for like Rainwater, the Libertarians are the second party in a lot of these counties,
Right.
in like 33% of the counties. So you not only can have a complete disruption of the voter registration system, the campaign spending, the electoral math, the competitive races, but also the bureaucracy that runs the state if Greg Ballard succeeds. And Greg Ballard has a track record of shocking the heck out of people.
Yeah. All right. Where can people find you? All of your stuff, your podcasting empire, everything. Where?
ChrisSpangle.com, WeAreLibertarians.com, and you can learn more about this podcast studio that you can rent.
That's right.
For the low price of, I'm not going to tell them what I'm charging.
Thank you.
It's much more.
Thanks for taking
at leadersandlegends.net.
Chris Spangle, thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Your bathroom fan could be secretly costing you thousands of dollars in damages. Most people don't even know this until the damage is done. With over 18 years of bathroom remodeling experience, here are 3 signs your fan is failing you without spending a dime on inspections. Sign number 1 is if you have foggy mirrors after you shower. This shows that your fan isn't pulling out enough moisture, which creates the perfect environment for mold. If you have a properly functioning bathroom fan that is the right size for your space, you shouldn't see much fogginess on your bathroom mirror at all. Sign number 2 is if you have bubbling, cracking, or peeling paint in your bathroom. This means moisture is soaking into your walls, slowly breaking down drywall, and even causing the wood framing behind it to rot. Sign number 3 is if you have mold buildup on your fan, ceilings, or walls. This is terrible for your health, but also could wreck your bathroom, costing you a fortune. If you're noticing any of these signs, here's what you can do.
Call Vent Savvy today at 317-300-4434. That's 317-300-4434 and mention Rob for a free attic inspection.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Bramwell Mackay assists managers of multifamily and commercial real estate properties with exterior and structural condition assessment and end-to-end building wellness. Your consulting partners for water intrusion inspection and remediation, Bramwell Mackay handles historic restoration and repair, as well as modern repair needs. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. That's 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.